So, what is Blazor? Blazor is basically a framework which allows you to create rich web UIs using C# in the browser. Um, so basically what it allows you is to, or one of the things that it allows you is to use as much C# code as possible in your browser, reducing the dependency of JavaScript and other third-party frameworks. Um, it allows you to create rich applications with web applications with a lot of great functionality and things like UI bindings to variables and all that um, by default without the need to use UI frameworks or front-end frameworks like Angular, Vue, React, or similar. Um, Basically, Blazor runs your C# code in the browser. Um, there are two flavors. One is Blazor Server, which actually communicates using Signal R, and there is Blazor Web Assembly, which basically uses web assembly to run the .NET framework in your browser, and then all of your code is actually executed in the browser itself without having the Signal R communication through a backend. Um, so yeah, that's what you can do. One of the advantages that Blazor allows you or gives you is that you can actually reuse a lot of your existing .NET libraries and code, because those are actually .NET. Blazor runs on .NET core projects when you can reference your own .NET libraries. So it's really, really good. You can reuse most of your code if you want and be able to run it uh, in your browser. So one common example, one advantage is that let's say that you have an application and you have an input form where you need to validate your user email address formats. So there are two things that you need to do. First, if you are going to save that to the database in the server, in your API endpoint, or whatever receives the data in the server, it needs to validate that the data is okay, it has the correct format before actually inserting it in the server. But when you are using these kinds of validations, you also want to reduce the round trips to the server. So if you can validate things in the client, you should. So if something is invalid, it doesn't even do a request to the server. For example, as I was mentioning, if the user email address that was input or typed is incorrect, I can know that from the client side, and there is no point to do a server call because we know it's going to fail anyway. The common approach to do this is basically do a validation in your C# code in the server, and also do a validation in your JavaScript code or TypeScript, your Angular code, or whatever you're using in your client side. If you do that with regular expressions, the expression is, I believe it's actually identical in JavaScript and in C#, and the code for doing the regex, the match, and all that is really, really similar. So you end up having pretty much the same code or the same validation in different languages, because one is validating the UI and the other is validating your server side data. With Blazor, you can actually do the validation in a C# class, and you can share that validation in both your client side and in your server side, effectively making the validation for UI and the server side just one simple method, let's say, instead of having it in different languages. So that's actually one of the great advantages that Blazor allows you. I hope this has been useful, and we'll continue to the course. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.